Hello and welcome to episode 16 of Triumph Beyond Trauma. Today for Tactical Yoga Australia is the official start of launch week. So if you are listening in the week of June 18 to 25, 2024, you can now head over to my website, tacticalyogaaustralia.com, to check out my program, the First Responder Mental Wellness Method. I think that this program is amazing. It's the only one of its kind that I'm aware of that has been created by a first responder for other first responders, veterans, and frontline workers. The program is entirely online and self-paced. If you have difficulty reading a lot of text, I've got your back there. Everything is either audio or a video track. There is also a PDF workbook that you will receive to use alongside your progress throughout the program. The program consists of a little first responder psychology, breathwork, mindfulness, yoga, of course, and ways to implement these into your everyday life. If you want to take a deep dive into the program and what it's all about, check out episode 4 in season 1, where I explain the program in a lot more detail. Something that I have changed this time around is the pricing structure of the program. So I've dropped the price of the program only. So if you want to have access just to the program and you don't want to see my face each week or have a live practice with me, you can join for just $247, which is a crazy bargain. But the reason I did this is because I know that this program is beneficial to the mental wellness of first responders, veterans, and frontline workers. I know that this program will help to reduce the symptoms of stress and anxiety, and I want as many of my brothers and sisters in the first responder, veteran, and frontline worker communities to have access to it as possible in this time of a cost of living crisis. If you do want access to everything, the price of $597 Australian remains the same, and with that you get group coaching and live practices as well as everything else that you get with the program only, so that you can really fast forward your progress. I could talk about it all day, but I won't, because the reason you're here is for my amazing guest this week, Dr. Shiromi. Dr. Shiromi has been a doctor for 15 years. She obtained her medical degree from Melbourne's prestigious Monash University and completed her internship and residency at Alfred Health. She loves chatting with patients, listening to their unique stories, and helping them get back on track so they can live life as the best version of themselves. After completing her specialist training and becoming a fellow of the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, she advanced her skills and completed further training in psychological strategies, subsequently establishing a high school mental wellbeing program. Dr. Shiromi is passionate about mental health and feels privileged to help her patients who courageously step into her office to seek help. She prides herself on supporting patients make positive lifestyle changes, gain an established skill set to help manage worries, and most importantly, find a sense of relief that they will all be okay. And most importantly, find a sense of relief that all will be okay. Dr. Shiromi is a strong advocate for empowering her patients to stay informed and engaged, paving the way for accelerated progress and better health outcomes. Dr. Shiromi is a leader for change and innovation. She is a founder and CEO of the Cloud GP. The Signature course is an online self-directed mental health program that helps patients overcome symptoms of depression and anxiety while they wait to see a psychologist. The Cloud GP's mission is to provide access to timely, evidence-based GP-led mental health support for all Australians. This episode and this conversation is so important. One of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast was to increase the mental health literacy of first responders, veterans, and frontline workers. If you've listened to a few episodes, you'll know that I refer to a lot of my own experiences, and I do this because I believe it is so important to speak out about it. If I can come here and I can recover loudly in a way that shows others that you can do the same, hopefully we can prevent some people from struggling, or worse, dying silently. One thing I'd like to address before we start is I mentioned a statistic in the episode that 9 people a week die by suicide in Australia, and that was incorrect. It's actually an average of 9 people a day in Australia dying by suicide. And I really wish I was right the first time, but unfortunately, this is what's happening. These numbers are people. They're people we love and care for. So please be kind to each other. Call your friends and family. Love each other as hard as you can. And please, please take early action for mental health. If not early, then as soon as you feel like something isn't quite right, please just go. Okay, that's my rant over. Please enjoy this incredible episode with Dr. Shiromi, the Cloud GP. Welcome to Triumph Beyond Trauma, the podcast that explores journeys of resilience and hope. I'm Rosie Skene, a yoga and breathwork teacher and founder of Tactical Yoga Australia. As a former soldier's wife, mum to 3 beautiful kids and a medically retired New South Wales police officer with PTSD, I understand the challenges of navigating mental health in the first responder and veteran community. Join us for incredible stories from individuals who've confronted the depths of mental illness and discovered their path to happiness and purpose, as well as solo episodes and expert discussions. Together, we'll uncover the tools to help you navigate your journey toward a brighter, more fulfilling life. Whether you're looking for helpful insights, practical tips, or just a friendly reminder that you're not alone, Triumph Beyond Trauma has got your back. You matter, and your journey to a happier, more meaningful life starts right here. Welcome to Triumph Beyond Trauma, Dr. Shiromi. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I would like to start off with talking a little about you, actually. And I know that you're a GP, but you have a specialised interest in mental health. And I'm just wondering how that all came about for you.
Yeah, of course. So I've always had a passion for medicine. I love talking to people and hearing their stories. And I was a bit of a nerdy science sort of person in high school. So I got into medicine at Monash and, did the rotations after I completed my medical degree. I was at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne and did a bit of emergency and did obstetrics and did inpatient mental health and wellbeing. And I really enjoyed it. Mental health and probably tricks for my two contend early on, but then I realized over time that I'm someone that needs my sleep.
Yeah.
Not babies are not born 9 to 5. So mental health was a lot more conducive to lifestyle and linked in with my joy. And then general practice. I love general practice mental health and especially early intervention mental health. That's getting in when, we first start seeing the cracks to appear and helping you turn things around quickly at those early stages. And that's simply because of the warm and fuzzies that I would get. Like, it's so lovely to have someone come in, and often when people come in to see us, things aren't great. Their marriage might be on the rocks, or they might be called in for a performance review, or they've been arguing and fighting with the kids all the time or feeling a shell of themselves. With a bit of hard work and a bit of psychological strategies and lifestyle change, we can often turn things around in 3 to 6 months' time. So as a GP, there is nothing better than doing that review consult in the 3 to 6 month mark and hearing people that they've, their relationships are better, they're doing better at work, they've got a promotion, or that they're just feeling themselves and, happy with life. So that's where my passion for mental health stems from.
Oh, that is, beautiful. And I know what you're saying when you get that little buzz, from helping people, because I get that too, in a different way, but I still get that.
Yeah, we all have to do stuff that, gives us fuzzies every day at work.
So you're just saying that you feel like in about 3 to 6 months, some people can turn around. Is that dependent on how fast, how deep their mental health issues are, how early they seek help?
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of factors involved. I think the 3 to 6 month I've seen, we might not be able to turn everything around, but most certainly with majority of people, we can make significant change and get people on the right track. Yeah, look, I always tell my patients, and even, it comes to do with follow-up in terms of catching up with me later, because mental health is depression, anxiety are chronic health conditions. They're not like a chest infection or, urinary tract infection we just throw antibiotics for and then a week later you're feeling better. It can come back over time. And I often tell my patients that if I can reach your hand, I could pull you out of a hole a lot easier than if you're in a deep, deep hole. And don't get me wrong, I've got ladders and pulleys and all the works to get you out of any hole that you're in, no matter where you are on the spectrum of things. But by golly, it's so much easier if we see people earlier in terms of helping them, change course and turn things around. But we can help you at any point. But yeah, that's why, we talk about so much about as GPs looking after health from a proactive standpoint rather than a reactive standpoint, in that we want to try and stop you from feeling unwell or getting to that point of crisis if ideally we can. And it's the same as going to the gym. Like, a lot of us go to the gym and do a physical workout, and that's not necessarily because we've had a heart attack or a stroke, is it? It's because we want to prevent that stuff down the track. So that's how we have to start viewing mental health and wellbeing in general as well, I think.
Yeah, I could not agree more. A proactive approach to mental health is definitely so important. And, for my listeners being first responders, veterans, and the families and friends of those people, that's a couple of industries where I really think it's so important. So in relation to early intervention and recognizing the signs and symptoms, for me, I'm going to tell a little story about me. I didn't know I had zero mental health literacy at all. Like, I just thought, mental health from what I dealt with as a police officer was just outbursts, to the point where, they were so deep with their mental illness that the police would get called and that's where I would be, that's what I would see. I didn't see anything else in the lead up to those events. And I think that's where a lot of us can struggle because we don't know the early signs and symptoms. So I was hoping that maybe you could discuss some of those for, the top three for police is anxiety, depression, and PTSD, of course. So are you able to speak to that and what some early symptoms that might present would be?
I think, and look, first of all, I think it's just normalize that struggle of trying to figure out what's a bad day, what's a bad week, about and what actually is a mental health illness as such. It can be very hard to sort of quantify that. In terms of, let's start with depression, for instance, symptoms that can be commonly experienced are things like sadness, lack of motivation, which we call anhedonia in medicine. So it's that feeling of you used to go for a bike ride or you used to catch up with your friends for coffee and now you just don't want to anymore. You can't be bothered doing those things that you used to enjoy a lot. Things like reduction in energy, fatigue, feelings of worthlessness and guilt and blame, decreasing concentration, appetite changes. And then we obviously talk about things like suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts or feelings of wanting to end your life. From an anxiety point of view, dealing with things like excessive worry. So not just that worry in the moment, that worry that keeps you up at night and that takes over your day and your functioning. Again, fatigue, reduction in concentration, sleep disturbance, irritability, and just the overall impact on your activities of daily living, whether it be your relationships or leaving the house. There can be most certainly a crossover with anxiety and depression. Sometimes people present with a bit of a mishmash of symptoms. And I commonly tell my patients, look, you might start with one, but they're almost cousins of each other. So if you find these other symptoms, creeping in, come and have a chat to us about it. I think one of the important things to note is that even though people might not know exactly what depression is or what exactly anxiety is, they often have a gut feeling that something is up and that something is wrong and they're not functioning at their best. And I often tell people not to try and get too caught up on the diagnostic process of, is this depression or anxiety? We don't do that with anything else in medicine. You don't need to worry about diagnosing yourself with appendicitis when you come in with severe abdominal pain. You just come in with the severe abdominal pain and say to me, my tummy hurts. And then it's my job to kind of ask the questions and try and figure out what's going on, whether it be, appendicitis or gallstone or endometriosis or whatever it is. So let's try and look at mental health as you coming in to have a chat to us to sort out what's going on. Now, most certainly those symptoms I mentioned can be a part of numerous different conditions, and that can make it tricky as well. So a part of our job in GP land is to rule out the, and I put in inverted commas, medical conditions that could also mimic depression or anxiety or another mental health condition, things like low iron or thyroid dysfunction, and sometimes other mental health disorders like bipolar, for instance, where you get these ebbs and flows of highs and lows. And so our job is to take a comprehensive history and to have a chat to you. So yeah, most certainly I think we need to bring about more awareness about the symptoms and what people are experiencing, but also not let people know that they don't need to have, a solidified diagnosis and wait for things to get really awful before they come in.
Yeah, that's great. I think when I went to see my GP, I was so lucky because she was great. And I had a couple of things I wanted to see her about, and I had like a little shopping list that I was there for, We were like, okay, well, what do you want to talk about first? And I'm like, oh, thankfully my mental health. And I still wasn't not convinced, but I still wasn't sure that there was anything wrong. But I'm so glad because it turned out there was quite a bit going on that I sort of didn't realize I was pushing to the side. So, but that first appointment for me, I think I actually went in with a shopping list because I was nervous and anxious about it, to be honest with you. And I think to have that realization as any human, whatever job you do, that, something might be right and need a little bit of help, especially for first responders and veterans, because there is so much stigma around, mental health and what impacts that can have or may have for your career. So I was wondering if you could walk us through maybe what your first appointment might look like with a GP and having that conversation from the very start.
Yeah, for sure. And, props to you for bringing it up because it is a really hard topic of discussion. And you mentioned that you brought it up first, and that's probably not the norm. What happens with that is that everything else we kind of get through. And then while someone's having I'm examining their knee or, after they're getting changed after their pap smear, they might go, oh, life's rough at the moment. And it's hard to sometimes delineate whether that's just conversation of the day or whether that's another presenting condition and something that they want to actually talk about and get to the bottom of. And that's a really normal thing to do when you're feeling nervous and apprehensive, worried about the judgment and all of that as well. But I think one tip to begin with would be to try and book a double appointment to begin with. So make sure there's enough time because then you don't feel like you're rushed to say everything and get everything out because it's a tricky topic to talk about. Where do you start? Often, it's not this, 3 days ago I had this and then this symptom happened and this. It's just you don't even know where to begin with this stuff. So book yourself a double appointment and then just try and come in with that issue. Literally come in and just say, I'm struggling a bit with my mental health and I thought we could have a chat. And then, we can help you with what to say and, questions and all of that sort of thing. But try and book a double appointment and then just come in with that one topic and make it very clear that that's what we're here to talk about. We've got a resource which we'll pop in the show notes that's called the Mental Health Care Plan Preparation Resource. And it actually goes through not all, but most of the questions we ask as GPs to patients in terms of that initial mental health consult. And it goes through what we're going to ask because I think that's another part of the worry is just not knowing what someone is going to ask and not feeling like you have all the information. But we'll go through and we'll ask a lot of sort of like a symptom checklist for the symptoms that we went through before. We'll do symptoms of other mental health conditions so we can rule them out. And then we'll ask about a bit of a systems review. So we'll ask about other health stuff that may seem completely unrelated, but we are there, searching to see whether or not your symptoms could be caused by a dietary deficiency or, a rheumatological disease or something else going on because we need to rule those things out. In medicine, it's very much about treating the cause. So the first part of the puzzle is to figure out, okay, what exactly is causing this? We'll often ask, history about lifestyle factors, so about diet, exercise and sleep, what your work's like and who you live with and social dynamics and all of those sort of things, because with mental health and wellbeing, all of those factors interplay with your presentation and how we get you better as well.
Yeah, they absolutely do. It's it's a holistic thing, isn't it, with your mental health?
Dr. Shiromi, all people, a lot of different people have different treatment in relation to their mental health. Personally, I've never been medicated. It wasn't something that I was comfortable in doing because I was a single mum of 3 kids at the time. My husband was away for more than 12 months. I know a lot of people worry about being medicated and what that might look like. Did you want to speak to that a little bit? And, I personally know not everyone has to be medicated and there are other options. So I'd love for you to talk about that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, of course. So I think let's lead with that. There are lots of options, right? And the key for us is to keep you informed because when you come in to see us to manage your depression, your anxiety, or whatever it is, it's a collaborative approach, okay? So to begin with, no one is going to force you to take any medication that you don't want to take, but it's always good to be informed about your options. Most of the time, we don't start medication on a first appointment. Very, very, very rarely would we suggest that. And it's almost a ladder approach, I think, in how we approach mental health. And we spoke about the holistic model of care before, and that we try and start you off with lifestyle changes and psychological management because we know these things work incredibly well when it comes to improving depression and anxiety. We've got heaps of studies to back us up in terms of, improvement in diet and exercise and sleep, and then cognitive behavioral therapy and various psychological strategies really, helping you get back on track. Now, I always have a chat about medication up front with my patients and say that it is an option because I like them to know that we've got another card up our sleeve in case the psychology or the lifestyle changes isn't working, that they can come in and we can talk to them about starting medication. There is great evidence for medication as well. I know some patients have been on that and things have literally turned around in 6 to 8 weeks, which is incredible. At the end of the day, if you take a Tic Tac and it makes you feel better and you're able to function and be happy in relationships and at work and in life, then take the damn Tic Tac.
Yeah.
Most certainly from a side effect profile, side effects can be quite varied. There are some people that have such negligible side effects it really doesn't bother them. Most certainly there are people that will experience symptoms like weight gain or erectile dysfunction or, various other things. But I think the other thing to consider is what symptoms were they experiencing from the depression or anxiety to begin with?
Yeah.
And in terms of motivation and concentration and fatigue and weight gain and all of that. So it's a bit of a individualized scale of pros and cons. Often when we start medication, we're at a point where things are not great and we get people back on track. Medication isn't something we start for a short period of time. It's not a 2-week, course of medication. It's normally for 6 to 12 months to begin with. And that's because we've got studies to back up that if we take you off the medication too quickly, that you can get rebound symptoms down the track. It's not a sort of medication that you get addicted to by any means. And you have to remember that if you're getting severe side effects or you don't like it, we can get you off it. It's not something that, or we can change the medication. But that's a discussion that I have with absolutely everyone so that they're informed about the pros and the cons. Your friend might be on a medication and we might put you on a different medication. That might be due to your symptom profile. It might be due to considerations of you starting a family, or you might be worried about a particular sort of side effect. So we might choose a different tablet or a different dose. So it's not something that can necessarily be compared with friends and family, but come in and just ask questions and get across the information so you can make an informed choice.
And that's the most important thing, isn't it? Just having that information, not guessing and not Dr. Googling too much like we all do, but actually getting in and talking to someone that knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Dr. Shiromi, what are some things that hold people back from going to see a doctor for the first time for their mental health?
Yeah, great question. I think stigma is a very big one that we need to address. So let's start with the idea that my symptoms aren't serious enough. That's a really big one. I especially think that's probably true of your demographic and listeners who are listening to this, and that you've probably seen some really awful things and some really awful situations. So when you compare what you're going through to what you've seen, maybe what you're going through seems not justifiable to come in and see a GP. And that's not the case at all. Like we were talking about before, we want proaction over reaction. But you guys, and the work that you do is really hard and it can be exposed to a lot of trauma. So that does put you at increased risk. So my advice there would be your symptoms are serious enough, come in and we can have a chat and, get you on the right track. Because if it's impacting your work productivity and your concentration and your relationships at home and your, relationships with your kids and your inner sense of happiness and self, then that's enough. That's enough. It doesn't need to be the worst case story I've ever heard in my life. That's enough. Because if we can get you back on track and, improve your work situation and home life and make you happy, then that justifies it. And I can tell you as a GP, I've been a doctor for 15 years and never have I had someone come in to see me for their mental health and thought, gosh, that was a waste of time. That's never the case. Often the opposite, where I think, bugger, I wish this person had come in 3 years earlier. It sounds like they're in a really dark place and they've been struggling alone. And there is so much that we can do to get them on track. And I just feel a bit upset and sad that we weren't able to help them come in earlier. So that's one to begin with. I think the opposite of that as well, things have gone too far, ironically enough. So it's either my symptoms aren't bad enough or my symptoms are too bad that there's nothing you can do about it. That's often the case for people who are maybe thinking about suicide or thinking about ending your life, the idea that there's no hope. And that's just not the case at all. As a GP, I can most certainly vouch for the fact that we've helped people on, like I said before, various sort of levels of depression and anxiety. And most certainly it's not uncommon to have people come in and talk about the fact that they've thought about ending their life or they've maybe even attempted. And so we can bring you back from that as well. We can change and turn things around. And it may seem hopeless, but it's also important to recognize that some of the feelings that you're having regarding that hopelessness and guilt and lack of motivation could actually be linked to you experiencing depression or anxiety as well. So it's this catch-22 awful circle that you can catch yourself in. So definitely come in. Number 3, I think links to the stigma, that whole idea of you should be able to fix this yourself, which is that old school thinking of, just pull your socks up and get on with it. We don't think like that when it comes to any other medical condition. No one comes in feeling like they should just breathe a bit harder to improve their asthma, do they? They come in with their symptoms of asthma and we help them as a doctor get better. Depression and anxiety are medical conditions. I almost wish that there was a blood test I could do just to justify them being medical conditions so that I could print out and be like, look, your bloods are showing this, but there's unfortunately not. But we really have to reframe the view in which we see depression and anxiety and bipolar and post-traumatic stress disorder to recognize that they are medical conditions and that you do need a professional to get you back on track and help you. Another one, the guilt. the feeling that you don't deserve to be helped. Maybe you've, done some things or messed up some relationships and you're just feeling a high level of guilt or blame and feel like you're just not worthy of help. That's often a common one I hear as well. And again, that's not the case, and it can be a direct causation from the medical condition that you are experiencing. So come in, have a chat to us. Things like psychological interventions can help you improve relationships and get things back on track. So most certainly that's one to think about. And the last one is that I think that we can bring up is that one of feeling like maybe you've been dismissed before, or maybe worried that you've been, you'll be judged, or you had a negative experience with the health system or with a doctor or someone else before in them brushing it off. And it does happen, and it sucks that it happens. I hate hearing as a clinician that someone's already seen somebody and they've just been brushed off, because it takes so much courage and guts to come in and to chat to us. And, I think it's really important that we make time for people and acknowledge that struggle to come in and acknowledge that they've been incredibly brave and courageous to come in and talk to us, and push aside those feelings of, feeling like a failure or feeling like they haven't done enough. No one chooses to have depression or anxiety. I think we have to acknowledge that. If there was something you could have done to fix it, you probably would have already done that. And the fact that it's not getting better is not because you aren't trying hard enough. That's just such a load of absolute BS. And, we don't say that with any other medical conditions. So we really have to work as medical bodies and supporting people. And I think from an individual standpoint, it's really important to connect with resources and people that you click with. I think everyone that works in your sort of field needs to have a great GP. And that's easier said than done sometimes, isn't it?
Especially because all the good ones are taken. Close. You can't get in.
Really hard. And
So hard.
And I appreciate that. I used to hear that when I was first started training, and people would say, oh, you're not going to go on mat leave or go on holidays, are you? It's so hard to find somebody. And I didn't quite get it, because I was working with a lot of amazing GPs until I had my little one, and I figured, oh, I better get a GP now for him. And, when you're younger, sometimes you maybe don't need to see a GP very often, and then life brings some curveballs, and maybe you need to see them for chronic health or mental health or whatever it is. And it took me 3 goes to find a GP that I clicked with, and I'm a doctor. So, I went, it is interesting in terms of the criteria that you look at when you're looking for someone, because it's not just about having the credentials on the wall. It's far more than that. It's a really unique relationship we have with our patients, because you want to find someone that you click with and connect with, and someone that you think is comprehensive and is listening to you and isn't judging you, someone who you can ask questions and challenge. And I love that when my patients ask questions about why I'm suggesting that or not suggesting this, or, it's really important that you be a part of that care and that process and that decision-making process. And so if you don't have someone good, then I would urge everyone within the next month to suss out, especially if you're feeling well. That's a great time to go in and find a great GP. It's so much harder to find someone when you're feeling vulnerable and have to talk about your mental health with a complete stranger. But if the next time you get a flu shot, or the next time you have to go in for a sick certificate or something small, just go in and suss somebody out, to be honest, because within 30 seconds, you're going to know whether or not you click with this person. And then down the track, if you need to have those big vulnerable conversations, you at least know the person in front of you is a good egg. And so you're less likely to hold off going in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't stop with the first one that you don't enjoy being with. And, I did say before, I've been so lucky. I've moved around a few times across Australia since being diagnosed, and I've had to maintain that care with GP. So finding new one has been a very interesting experience. But in saying that, I had one in Adelaide, and immediately I knew that, going through the New South Wales Workers' Compensation system is not easy. And I could tell straight away that she just didn't have the knowledge, understanding to be able to do that for me on a long-term basis. So I found one, and I had practically told the doctor, this is my situation, this is how it is. It wasn't my first time with a doctor talking about it. Yeah. And I'm like, are you going to be able to provide that care for me? Because I need to know. And she was great. She was like, yeah, I actually can do that. And I'm like, okay, good. And he kept her for 4.5 years until we moved again. So it is so important to, I think, know what you need from your GP. If it's not your first consultation and you're sort of trying to work it out, but what do you need to support yourself from your GP? And, Do you need someone that has a lot of bedside manner, or are you happy to be straight talk too, as well, I think?
A great point. I often one of the tips that I will give friends and family is call up reception and have a chat to them and say, hey, I need someone with a more mature, nurturing approach. Is there someone that you'd recommend? Because personality plays a huge part of it, doesn't it, in terms of
Absolutely.
how you connect with someone. I'm someone that's, very upfront, very black and white and motivating. And, that might work for some people. It might not work for other people. You might want someone that's a bit older or someone a bit younger, but someone that speaks a different language or is an advocate within a special, a particular community. Or, I've got a patient that sees me for anxiety that she knows, he read on my practice profile that I have a Labrador named Snickers. And she saw that and she was like, oh, she's a dog person. I like dog people and she's a dog walker. And whenever she's feeling a bit anxious or a bit kind of nervous, when we talk, even though she's known me for a long time, we revert to a quick chat about our pups. And it just helps her relax. And, so I don't care what it is that you need. Think about it and do the research. And whether it be looking at practice profiles or talking to friends or getting on Facebook communities and asking people or calling up reception or speaking, whatever it is, find someone that you connect with. I know that's hard, but once you do, it's worth its absolute weight in gold.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. Being able to keep a GP for an extended period of time is a gift. Like, it's such a blessing to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Something that you touched on before, like one of the reasons why people don't seek help with a GP is stigma. And I know we briefly touched on that earlier again, but in relation to first responders and veterans, it is, I reckon, probably number one on the list of reasons why they don't seek help. And it's not only the way that they think people think about them, that they have a mental health condition, but the fact that, well, it's not a fact. They think that they may not be able to perform their job role. And as you were saying, if it's a physical health condition, you've broken your arm or a leg or you've got a bad back, or you can see those things. And mental health, that's not visible. It's an invisible injury. And it's something that people really struggle with. And myself, again, like something that I struggled with because I couldn't see it. And at the start, I like to label things. I'm one of those people. So one of the times where I felt an incredible weight off my shoulders was when my psychologist said, yes, you have PTSD. And I'm like, finally, I have something that I can now work with because I know what it is and I can start working to make that better. But that would never have happened if I didn't get out of my own way a little bit and not give two hoots about what anyone else would think about me. Because I knew that I needed some help and I needed to be better. But I would never have gotten to that stage of diagnosis if I didn't take that very first step and ignore that stigma. And I just know that that's something that a lot of people struggle with, which is so, so sad.
It is really sad. And I think, it's a really hard step to reach out. But by golly, the moment you've done it, it's no longer just you. Like you've spread the load in terms, okay, now it's you and me sorting this out together. You've got a trained health professional on your side to get you better, which is so much better than you swinging around in circles trying to figure out this and do this. And we often do all these little things by ourselves. And often by the time people come to see me, they've got the new haircut and they've read the help self book and gone on some vegetable diet and done all these things and tried to desperately do things and are just feeling so overwhelmed and have that drop stomach sort of sick feeling that this is never going to get better. But as soon as you get somebody else on board and someone that knows what they're doing, the problem becomes so much easier to tackle, even from just that heaviness that you're carrying around point of view.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah, for sure.
Dr. Shiromi, you are the Cloud GP.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a wonderful program. And you just briefly mentioned your free resource that is on your website. And I implore anyone that is thinking about going to see a GP and might be a little bit nervous to go and download that as soon as you finish listening to this episode and see those questions that Dr. Shiromi has put together for you. But I would love for you to talk to us about your program because I think it is something that's needed, to be honest with you. That time that can be between seeing a GP and a psychologist, unfortunately, in Australia at the moment can be extended. So would you love to tell us about your program, please?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the opportunity. So I was sitting in my GP office and like I said to you before at the start, I love mental health. And my brave patients were coming in and telling me their symptoms, and we were having a chat and doing the whole consult like we spoke about, and done some bloods and diagnosed them with depression or anxiety or whatever it may be. And then I'd write them a referral to see their local psychologist, and they would go home and call up their psychologist and have a 6 to 8 week wait in metropolitan Melbourne to see someone. And if we are talking rurally, when I worked out there, months, it could be 3 months before, 3 to 6 months before you're able to see someone. And that is an absolute gut punch because, like we said, when people come in to see us, they're at a point of crisis often. They're not coming in proactively. They're coming in because they're a shell of themselves and relationships is on the rocks and they're about to lose their job and all this awful, awful stuff. They want help yesterday. So having my patients unsupported just felt awful, awful, awful. So I went off and did extra psychological training, and I would give my patients and effectively psychotherapy in the first few weeks until they could connect with somebody. And I realized sitting in a GP desk that I can only see 20 patients a day and I can't see any more than that.
That's a lot, though.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But from a scalability point of view, all my colleagues were having the same problem. And not every GP can go off and do psychological training. And not every GP has a passion for mental health, right? I love mental health. A colleague next door loves slicing and dicing and skin cats. And that's not my cup of tea. I can do it, but it doesn't bring me the warm and fuzzy. So how do we provide this sort of service to everyone, which made me think about providing it through an online platform? Self-directed learning, so that I'm not asking you any questions. You're not seeing, there's not a two-way transfer of information. It's self-directed learning. So it's me talking to you on a screen, and self-paced. You can do it when you're free. There are some government programs out there, but they were really long. They were 6 to 8 weeks long. And for a lot of patients, when they come in to see you, they are so overwhelmed and have so much on their plate with work and projects and life and looking after kids and all the stuff we have on our plate. The idea of doing a long course with just like, there's no way I can fit that in. I'm barely struggling to, I'm dropping balls when it comes to the important things in my life, let alone all the other stuff. So we created a program that's really short, an hour a day for 3 days, effectively. If you were a real keen bean, you could get it done on a weekend before your family woke up for brunch. It's 3 consults. In the first consult, we go through stigma, which is what we spoke about before. And we look at those reasons that hold people back from seeking help, and we help you reframe them. Because the thing is, if we don't get the foundations right, we can do all the psychological therapy and lifestyle stuff we want. But if you think you're not deserving or you're feeling blame, we're going to have, less, not as good outcomes in the long haul. So consult 1 looks at stigma, and then we go through the medical workup and we go through that process of what actually is depression and anxiety. What are the symptoms? What are the questions your GP is going to ask you, and what blood tests are they going to order, and what are the differential diagnoses that we want to rule out? And we go through that because I know that not everyone has a great experience with a GP when they're going to see them for depression and anxiety. And we want to self-correct that situation so that you, again, have great foundations moving forward. We go through stigma, we go through the medical diagnostic workup and all of that sort of thing. And we go through myths about medication, and we have a big chat about medication so you're informed about the pros and the cons and the side effects and different medications and all that sort of thing. And then we go through lifestyle interventions, which is one of my favorite bits. So we go through really practical advice regarding diet, exercise, and sleep. Nothing crazy like marathon running if you're not someone that doesn't exercise or going on any crazy diets, but the evidence-based stuff in terms of starting a Mediterranean, a whole foods diet, washuku in Japan. So it's eating stuff that's, not processed, and the evidence behind that. Then in consult 2, we do a little degustation menu, if you will, of psychological strategies and therapies. So we go through problem-solving therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and a bit on mindfulness. Again, we've really focused it on being really practical. So the stuff that you can implement yourself. And there's downloadable PDFs and resources so that you can think about the problems that keep you up at night and write them down and have a psychological process for being able to manage them and manage the worry. Because that's one of the things that kind of goes out the door sometimes with depression and anxiety, is that executive functioning of knowing not to stress about something because you may not have control, or knowing to only worry about in these circumstances, or having a plan of action. It can all just feel really muddled and overwhelming. So we go through some strategies with that, and some help with mindful breathing and exercises to help you there. And then in the third consult, we go through social connection and suicide safety. So in social connection, We go through helping you build social connection because we know that loneliness is a really big factor when it comes to mental health and wellbeing. And something that we all struggle with in today's world with Uber Eats and meetings on Zoom and not catching up with people in real life as often as we previously would. We have a big resource there that I think is one of my parts of this program I'm really proud of, which goes through tips for family and friends who are helping someone with depression and anxiety. It's often something that's overlooked, but it's not uncommon as a GP to have someone come in with their partner or whoever, and that partner to sit there going, I've told so-and-so to do this and this and this, and I've told them to do that, and they're not doing this, and they're sleeping in, and they've done this, and we had on, and you can just see that the dynamic is making the whole situation 10 times worse. And it's not because the partner is trying to make it worse. They're coming in with such good intention, but they're also very scared and completely lost as to how to help this person. So it's a whole resource in providing practical, judgment-free support for that person. And for that particular module, I most certainly encourage everyone to get family together to watch it and to pause it and to have those discussions. And then the last part of that third module is about suicide safety, which is something I think we need to talk about with absolutely everyone, because if there's one thing I've learned over my years of being a doctor is that you can't judge a book by its cover, and that they might even not want to tell me about it in the first appointment. It might only be the third or fourth appointment that they open up about it. But I think that absolutely everyone who struggles with symptoms of depression or anxiety or struggles with those conditions needs to have a suicide safety plan in place where we talk about, okay, if you all of a sudden were to feel those feelings or think about that stuff and actively want to end your life, what are the steps that you do, personalized steps that you do to get yourself out of that situation? Physically, what do you do? Where do you go? Who do you call? What resources are there? And so we go through all that sort of stuff. And I hope that nobody needs it, but by golly, it's important to have, an umbrella for a rainy day, because these things can come up out of the blue. They might just be, your car might get hit on the way home from work, and that's just the thing that broke the camel's back. And so having that plan in place and having discussed it with family and friends from the very start, even when you weren't that unwell, leads to a situation where we're just creating a safer community. So yeah, that's kind of a debrief on the program. But like I said, it's short. You go online, you don't need a referral, you don't need a GP to refer you to it or a psychologist. You can just go on and sign up and then start the program. And yeah, it's most certainly for people that have seen a GP and are waiting to see a psychologist, but most certainly we've had a few people do it who are yet to see a GP as well, that just are feeling really apprehensive about that step and need kind of a stepping stone resource to build the confidence and the knowledge to be able to be comfortable going to see a GP. So yeah, hopefully it helps people out there.
I would have been one of those people if it was around 100%, because I love researching everything and finding out everything. But I think also too, with that resource, they can use the information when they make their own notes and they come up with their own plans and take that with them to the psychology appointment as well, right?
For sure. I mean, that's the benefit of this program, is we're actually expediting care. So we can get the foundations right, and we can get you learning and understanding about different psychological strategies and get you doing some things before you even start. By the time you hit the psychologist's office after you've had your X number of weeks wait that you didn't have a choice over, you are ready to hit the ground running. That's like the psychologists often report they don't need to go through the basics with people. They've got a really good understanding of their condition. They have a really good understanding of the fact that we have to take a holistic approach to mental health and well-being, so that we need to do the lifestyle stuff and deal with the toxic boss and deal with all of these other things while doing the individualized psychological therapy. And they've got realistic expectations as well. Because let's be honest, when you see the psychologist for the first time, it's not like they sprinkle fairy dust on you and you magically get better, as much as that's what we're often hoping for. The first few appointments are often history taking. They're there asking questions about your life and about your childhood. And I've had patients who have come back to see me after being referred by another GP who have dropped off because they got frustrated that the psychologist was asking about their parents' divorce when they wanted to fix things with their fiance and their work situation. And we've had to go back and go, oh, hold on, let's just explain how cognitive behavioral therapy works, and the fact that, the way that you were raised and your experiences frame the way you view the world. And that's probably what the psychologist was trying to figure out and help them understand the therapy that they were having. Because if you don't understand the therapy that you're having and have those insights, again, there's a chance of disengagement. So it's really our job as GPs to prep people for the best possible outcomes when they're going to see the psychologist. The truth of the matter is that now with, reduction in resources and all that sort of thing, and cost of living, people are definitely coming in with those shopping lists of things to sort out with the GP. is that it's becoming a very reactionary medicine where we're just like, right, what's wrong? Oh, you've got a cold. All right, let's sort that out. What's your elbow pain, migraine, and where we don't talk about the other stuff, the lifestyle stuff and the preventative health stuff. But the evidence suggests that that's the stuff we really need to get onto if we want to make you well. So yeah, most certainly that's something with the program. It gets the ball rolling. And often patients will start to feel better before they even start to see the psychologist, which is amazing.
Yeah. And just even with that, with the psychologist and people becoming disengaged, something that I didn't realize that would happen with me, I was exhausted.
Far out.
I'm so exhausted. And a friend of mine, after I've been seeing my psych for a couple of years, she sent me a message and said, I'm sitting outside of a psychologist's office. I'm waiting to go in. And like, great, like this is great for you.
Mhm.
And then afterwards, she's like, I'm exhausted. And I'm like, oh, yes, I did forget about that. It is so exhausting the first few times because it's a lot, right?
So much. And also we are drudging up and digging up some really painful, often memories and trauma. And there's no like light skirting when you're doing one-to-one therapy. It's deep, deep stuff. And you can come out feeling tired and exhausted. I mean, sometimes you come out feeling relieved and like there's a burden that's lifted off your shoulders. So people have varied expectations, but it's nice to have the heads up on those experiences before you go in. Because if someone doesn't know that that's normal to feel that way, and it does take a few appointments to start the ball rolling, they can walk out after the first appointment and just be like, oh, no, thank you.
Done that again.
Totally. So that's just the unfortunate nature of GP now. And they're maybe not having the time to go through and explain all of that. But if we could explain to people the process and what we're doing and how it all works, you're more likely to engage. It's the same as taking a tablet. I can give someone a cholesterol tablet and just say, here's a tablet, take it. Your numbers are this. Or I can sit down and go, look, here are your numbers from your cholesterol result, and this is what they're meant to be, and here's the range of what you are, and then draw them a picture of their blood vessel and show them the blocked artery and be like, this is what this medication does, and this is how it works. And we're hoping to get you to this number. I'm going to give you a pathology slip, and we're going to recheck it in 3 months' time and explain that whole process. And what it means is in the morning when you have to take that tablet, you get why I'm asking you to take it as opposed to being, nah, can't be bothered. You now are informed. You're a part of the process. So that happens with every aspect of medicine. We know that informed, engaged patients have better health outcomes. So that's what our program is all about. It's helping you become informed and engaged about your own health and helping you get those wins so you can enjoy life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so, you did mention suicide and that's part of your program to talk about that and get a plan together if you do have those thoughts and feelings. And unfortunately, 9 people in Australia every week commit suicide. So it's a very real risk for people in our country at the moment. But you also touched on the cost of mental health and seeking help, seeing a doctor, seeing a psychologist. Is it still the case that you can go on a mental health care plan and you get a certain number of visits for free or a lower cost? Is that something that's available to people?
Look, that's a really good and topical point of discussion. So yes, at the moment you can still see a GP, and as long as you meet criteria for being diagnosed with a mental health condition, and so you meet the symptoms and the timeframes and all that sort of stuff, you can get access to subsidised psychology sessions. So you get 10 subsidised psychology sessions. You don't get them all at once. I think you get 6 to begin with, and then you go in for a review, and then you get the other 4. That may be changing with the federal government budget changes, which is just heartbreaking. You will see what happens come November, but they're looking at categorising the severity of people's illnesses and only being able to provide that service for people with a certain level on top of already having a diagnosis, which I understand from a resource allocation point of view, but from a medical doctor point of view, it is the worst thing ever, because now we're effectively waiting for people to get worse before we're going to give them help, which is just such a terrible way of thinking when it comes to healthcare. We're in a system that we need to create proaction and change early on to help people from not getting to that care where they end up in hospital. Even from a point of view, when someone's in hospital after having a suicide attempt or being really unwell, that costs money, and it's far less to fund early intervention. I think that the government is going to start helping people with more online resources, which is a good thing, but hopefully they find a way to be able to subsidise the program for everybody, because the last thing we want is people getting unwell. The fact of the matter is that we need to do things the moment people come in asking for help is the moment we need to help them. And like we said before, often when people come in, they're not coming in early. they're coming in later. So the chances are that most people in that situation will probably still qualify anyway, to be honest, because I can't think of anyone that I've referred to a psychologist that I would say, oh, no, they didn't need to see a psychologist.
Yeah.
It costs money. I mean, it's seeing a psychologist. And sometimes I've had patients go through our program, our online program, because they're getting the funds together to be able to afford to see the psychologist, even though there is a subsidy. So my key point there would be to try and take action ASAP when it comes to your mental health and wellbeing. And when we talk about cost and finances, yeah, it's expensive to see a psychologist and it's expensive to see a GP. But we also need to consider the expense of not.
Yep.
Something we sometimes overlook, the cost of, having reduced concentration, low work productivity, the cost of sick days, the cost of lost in employment or reduced job opportunity. That also is a cost that can impact you. So even from a financial point of view, it does make sense to get on board and get this stuff sorted before it gets bad.
Yeah. Yeah. At that first little niggle and you think that something might not be quite right, go and see someone.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shiromi. This has been a really wonderful conversation and one that I've wanted to have with someone for a long time. The reason I started the podcast was because I got sick of seeing another police officer, another veteran committing suicide. It's a crazy time and there's not enough that's been done proactively to, one, normalize mental health and in our these workplaces especially, and to reduce the stigma and to provide information. And what you said before is like, you almost have to get worse to get help to get better. And I have certainly seen that in those industries and it's not great. So I'm so grateful that you could come on and encourage people at that very first little niggle that something might not be quite right to please go and seek the help. Go to your website, the Cloud GP, download that free resource or join your course and take part in that and get all the help that you need because everyone is so worth it. Every life matters. And I'm so grateful that you could come here today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss any new ones. We release fresh content every Tuesday. And while you're there, take a moment to leave us a review. I would genuinely appreciate your thoughts. Don't forget to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at Tactical Yoga Australia and share this episode with your friends, family and workmates to spread inspiration. Your support means the world. My name is Rosie Skene. Join me again next week for another empowering and positive episode of Triumph Beyond Trauma. Until then, be kind to your mind and trust in the magic of your consistent and positive efforts. Triumph beyond your trauma is closer than you think. Have the best week.